both my parents also made it clear that we were very poor and that we were meant to serve the family. And so I was taught that I was a burden and useless, and that my sole purpose was to try and be as little and take up as little space as possible. The sexual abuse, my father started raping me when I was 3, and I remember a time when I was 5, I was talking to my mom about how much it hurt, and she scoffed at me and just told me that I would be fine. And I knew from then on that she was completely okay with it and was allowing it to happen. And I became hopeless and helpless, and the best thing I could do was to think that it was my fault, and if I could do something different, then maybe they would change. And that became the string that my parents held me with my entire life, was this idea that I was a bad daughter and that if I could just try harder, then they would love me. And I found out later that that was never going to happen. I tried to do everything and to do my best. So from an early age, I was forced to perform really well in school. I was a straight A student, and when I got one bad grade, my parents said, well, how do we know you're not going to fail us later? And decided to ensure their income for their future. So my parents wanted me to do well in school so that I could become a doctor and a lawyer and take care of them and feed them money. But they were very greedy and wanted to make money before I got to college. That was going to take too long. So they mentioned that I got one bad grade and how can they rely on me? So they need to make sure that I work for them. So that became a conversation about how I am going to start being sold. And it was talked to me in this way that the family was poor and we needed money. And then my mom also started becoming a victim herself. So, while my father was violent and abusive, she also took on the role of being the victim in the household. So she told me that I needed to sell myself in order for her to leave my father. And so when I was 8, I was made to write a contract that ensured that I would give my parents 30% of my income, buy them a home, become a doctor, and essentially I just signed my life away. And that began the campaign to sell me. And when I was 10 and 11, my father started taking me to their Vietnamese cafes that were fronts for brothels, and I was raped in those and then eventually forced to work there. My father would drop me off there. He would rape me there. He would then get paid for other people to rape me. And then I would go home and he would rape me at home. My mother would continue to berate me and talk to me as if I was worthless and call me a slut. She also treated me as if I enjoyed it and as if I was competing with her for my father. She just thought that I was one of the other women that my father was enjoying, because my father liked to buy prostitutes as well. And so I became an enemy to my mother in her mind, as well as somebody that she could dominate and use. And so then there became a fight over my body. My mother did not see enough of the cash that my father was earning, so then she decided to take it into her own hands and sell me. She took glamour shots of me, put them in newspapers and magazines, set up dates, took me to different brothels and strip clubs, and all of this was going on while my father was still raping me at home. And the way that I dealt with it was that I put all of my energy into overachieving. And it was also a way of dealing with it that my parents allowed. They wanted me to do well in school. My father also wanted me to play soccer. He wanted me to be fit so I would be of higher value. And also when I played soccer, he could take me away on the weekends to tournaments and rape me there. I was super isolated. I was not allowed to have friends. I went to school about 45 minutes from where I grew up, and didn't get to play with friends after school, go to their houses. I developed severe headaches and ulcers, and also began hitting my head against walls because I was so frustrated and had no way out. I tried to talk to teachers. I would go in their classrooms and cry and cry and cry, and they would ask me to share with them a little bit about what was going on. But I got into the mode of obey, and that may be the only way that you can get out. I also was waiting for college to happen, and I tried to go to college just like Jen as far away as possible, but my parents wouldn't let me. I went to college about an hour away. However, that was close enough that they didn't move to the same city. I was forced to go visit them every weekend. They decided to set tricks and dates up closer to where my college was, and so they were prostituting me to get through college. But the thing that allowed me to get out was building relationships in college. There were days where my whereabouts wasn't monitored, whereas in high school and middle school and younger, they knew exactly where I was at all times. I had to call and check in all the time with my cell phone. They knew who I was with, who I was talking to, and I had to present as if I was this perfect child. So once I got to college, I found spaces where I could be myself, I could get to know people, I could walk on the street without them following me, and I saw a life of freedom that existed, that in hopes that maybe I could get out. And so I built a relationship with a friend. I had this fantasy that maybe I could find a man to love me, and that would be the way out. And this friend did love me, and he did not want to date me, but I used that significant relationships to find some worth in myself. He also shared with me his own abuse history, introduced me to ASCA, which you'll hear about, and started talking to me about that it's okay to be angry about being abused, and that this really is my life, and introduced me to a therapist that dealt with severe sexual trauma and really educated me about child abuse and trauma. And I read a book, Drama of the Gifted Child, that really opened my eyes to my own story and explained a lot of my struggles. So that kind of opened the door for me to escape my birth family. I cut ties with my parents. I had to find a job so that I had some income. I moved to an apartment where they didn't know where I lived. I changed my phone number, my email, and I also threatened to turn them into the police. So I was able to escape at the same time as begin my healing process, because I was thinking about ending my life, and I didn't want to. It was more that I didn't know. I couldn't continue to live the life that I was living, but I didn't know a way out. So that began my journey to healing.